All right, okay. On to the next phase. Now, are we going to the east end now?
Yes, that's down to the east end. So now we're looking at Greers Road to the railway line. So key responses and submissions received. The Harewood Road Greers intersection, a lot of support around addressing the safety concern that's been observed there. So a number of people turning right from Greers Road, heading along to Harewood Road. There's a crash history there, and there's the safety improvement that's going to provide right turn arrows and all of those movements. That also allows for protection of the pedestrians crossing via the red lights. So a lot of support for the Greers intersection. Support for the signals down by Matson's Ave, Chapel Street area. Because Harewood Road's quite busy down there, and you have the rest homes, so Wesley Care, Golden Age, the road is really a barrier. And as Anne mentioned, there's a lot of people from Wesley Care that head across to the likes of Mitre Mega 10 and get a coffee. That's like a social hub there where people are meeting up. But there's also couples that are split between the two rest homes. They may have started off together at Wesley Care and then one of them's moved over to the higher dependency at Golden Age. And it's allowing those people to easily cross the road. So there's a lot of support for the signals to go in to remove that barrier. The signals in that location also connect up the bus stops that are well utilised by the elderly. There's concern with the two-way cycleway on the north side of Harewood going past Golden Age. And that's predominantly around the ability for people to enter and exit the three driveways that are along there. Associated with the two-way on the north side is the need to restrict Sale Street and Chapel Street to exit or enter only. And that's to help address the safety issue that you have with the two-way for contraflow riders. So riders that are riding towards the traffic in the unexpected location are at a higher risk, and we restrict the movements at side roads to help mitigate that risk. At Wilmot Street, that's been cul-de-saced or proposed to be cul-de-saced at Harewood Road, and that eliminates any vehicles turning across the riders. Also concern in that area around the removal of parking associated with visitors to the rest home. If we consider what concepts were evaluated for this area, the recommendation from a technical perspective was to provide one-way cycleways from Greers Road through to Chapel Street. That's the safest outcome for people riding and the most intuitive for drivers. However, to achieve that, all of the car parking from Greers Road to the railway line needed to be removed. And when we presented this to the joint community boards, it was unanimous feedback that the impacts on the residents and the businesses was too great, and that the compromise of providing a two-way along with the restrictions to the side roads on the north side was a better outcome. We evaluated a two-way on the south side of Harewood Road. Now that has the same concern with crossing over Wesley Care now instead of Golden Age, but also the two-way cycleway would be closer to the property boundaries because the offset from the property boundary to the cycleway is less on the southern side. And the restrictions to Harris Crescent movements, Matson's Ave movements is far greater impact on the residents because the blocks are bigger. So people have to drive further to get to their destination. To help address the Golden Age concern around the accessway, we looked at extending the one-ways from the railway line past Chapel Street up to the Sales Street area. And that would then require an additional mid-block crossing for pedestrians and cyclists. So while it was technically feasible, it resulted in an additional set of traffic signals, and it wasn't supported from the traffic operations perspective. You would then have a number of signals over a short length of road. With the parking demand in this area, it's quite a high parking demand along Herwood Road, east of Chapel Street and up towards Sales Street. And a majority of that parking demand is long-term or all-day parking. And some of it's related to the Northlands Mall and the other business activities in the area with the rest homes. And it's what we've tried to do is take the parking that is now available and provide some parking restrictions to encourage that higher turnover. But the parking that's occurring there at the moment is more commuter parking, and that spills on to Hawani Street, Chapel Street. We noted a lot of students from Papanui High School parking in this area. So while the parking's been removed, it is displaced parking, and there is parking available in the side streets. People need to walk a bit further, but when you're parking all day, that's not such a concern as if it's a dairy reliant on the high turnover parking. So what are the key changes that we have made post-consultation? This 3D visualisation looks along Herwood Road towards Papanui. And you see the two-way cycleway on the northern side, central flush median and parking on the southern side. So that's the design as consulted. So the key concerns we had were around the Wilmot Street area. So Team Dental and Palmer's Funeral that are on the corner of Wilmot Street and Herwood Road, the design restricted access to their off-road car parks. So in consultation with them, moving the cul-de-sac head up to Hawani Street opens up their car parks, but it also opens up Wilmot Street for overflow parking. So as Anne mentioned, at Palmer Funeral, there is spillover parking outside of their off-street car park into the street. So as part of that, we're providing P120 parking restrictions along the western side of Wilmot Street. So that discourages that all-day parking, but makes the parking more available for Palmers during events. Sales Street and Chapel Street, the one-ways at the intersections have been reversed. And this is based on feedback from the chapel on the corner here and from Mitre 10. Mitre 10 were concerned about people rat running through their car park and using that as an alternative to Chapel Street. And it was observed that vehicles and people were rat running from Matson's Ave. At the moment, it's quite difficult to turn right out of Matson's Ave. So people are turning left out of Matson's, right into Chapel and doing a U-turn in the Chapel Street car park, and then turning left and heading down to Papanui Road. So by working with these two businesses, we're able to identify some of the intricacies of how the area is operating and swap around those intersections. A consequence of changing these roads is that additional parking needs to be banned at the Langdons Road, Chapel Street. And that's to improve visibility for people exiting Chapel Street, but also to allow for the heavy vehicle movements into the Mitre 10 area. Now, this option and the changes we've made, it doesn't address the issues raised by Golden Age. And we're going back to Golden Age and confirming with them that we'll design the line marking, the signage in accordance with the latest design standards, but we're also going to take a look at providing active flashing lights that pick up either when a vehicle's exiting Golden Age or when there is a rider on the cycleway passing Golden Age to raise awareness. And that's something that we'll develop in conjunction with them. Are there any questions?
Aaron.
Sorry, I'll only ask the one really obvious one. It's not our end of town, so we try not to have too much say on it. But because it's been raised by some of the old people's homes, if an outsider's to look at that design, they'd say, why are we putting in traffic lights for cyclists that can bike all the way to the airport or bike all the way to town? And you'd assume they're quite sharp and fit and healthy, yet we're not putting in signals for elderly people who actually need care. And that, who are probably sight impaired, hearing impaired, faculty impaired, all sorts. How would we explain that to people?
So the first point would be that not all of the riders are going out to the airport and riding the full length of Harewood Road. If we look at the cycle numbers on the route at the moment, the highest volumes are up at this end, heading through to Bishopdale Mall. So there's a lot of shorter trips. People going to Papanui High School, heading towards the church, heading down to Bishopdale Park. So they're not all long trips. And some of them, with the interest, a bit concerned. You're talking about a young rider, so an 8-year-old that they don't ride long distances. In terms of providing improved crossings for elderly, I agree with you, and I'm not sure what the answer to that is in terms of how do we provide that more equitable crossings and designs around the city. What this proposal for Harewood Road does is it does provide a lot more signalised intersections that provides greater opportunities for the elderly and the young to cross.
But the elderly homes there, because they're across the road from each other, so that's a pretty obvious point. They've been asking for a pedestrian crossing. They asked for the original zebra one, but we don't seem to do them anymore for 15 years that I know of.
Yeah, I'm unable to provide any information on that, but we can have a look and come back to you on that.
This is the proposal, isn't it, to put in?
No, it's got a refuge island, but it's not a signalised crossing of any sort, or even a zebra crossing.
You go back?
Yeah,
I thought it was a pedestrian signal.
If I could clarify that.
Oh, sorry,
then.
maybe it has got a signal. Did I read it wrong?
It has, yeah. So this here, that's Chapel Street.
Yeah.
And this is Golden Age and Wesley Care.
Yeah.
These signals here are pedestrian and cyclist signals.
Yeah.
And there's been really positive feedback from both Wesley Care and Golden Age about these signals opening up the route through to Mitre 10, the coffee shop area, opening up the bus stops, improving that connectivity between the two rest homes, particularly where couples have been split between the two rest homes.
Yeah.
And there's also their blood testing that they often go to up here. It's a bit further away, but yeah. These signals here have been well supported by both the rest homes.
Okay. So what's the one in the picture then? Because is that it?
So that is a existing refuge, and we're
so
trying
that's coming
to
out.
Yeah, we're trying to retain all the existing refuges where they
so
are.
It stays there.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
So the signals are in the background and about there.
right. Oh yeah. For an older person that's hard of walking, they'll enjoy the trip.
Well, if they're going to Mitre 10, it's perfectly in line with where they're
I don't
going.
think they're allowed to do maintenance on those places themselves. But
No. There's a coffee
Oh, right.
shop. There's a coffee shop there.
It's fantastic.
yeah, Columbus.
It's why it's here at the city.
I've actually been to it myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not a
I go there
handy
quite a bit.
person at all.
I go there. I haven't seen Mike there, but I go there quite a bit.
Yeah, no, look, okay. Are there any questions on this, Emma, and then Mike?
I'm sure you're well aware of the traffic issues on Langdons Road at the moment, which we hear a lot about. What does the modelling show on the impacts of those changes to Wilmot and Sales and Chapel? What impact do they have on Langdons?
The modelling hasn't shown any impact on Langdons that's noticeable. So Sales Street isn't highly used at the moment as a through route. Wilmot's really low volume, kind of less than 500 vehicles a day on it. Chapel Street's used more as a rat run. But the modelling didn't identify Langdons as really being affected by those proposed changes. And the same person that's been modelling Hayward Road is also involved in that Langdons area assessment.
Thanks.
Mike?
Thanks. Just a question on the two one-way cycleways. Did you look at doing? Because I'm a bit concerned with the amount of volume that goes into the Mitre 10 there and that conflict. Did you look at doing a bidirectional on the south side instead of two one-ways?
Yes, yeah, we did look at that, and our first cut of the design continued a two-way through this section, and then we pulled a two-way or bidirectional across to the south side for that one section. What we were observing though is that for your riders that are eastbound, so heading in this direction here, they were unlikely to cross here, come along, and then cross again to head up towards the Northlands Mall area, Papanui High School area. So retaining the eastbound on the north side was the preference.
So what's your plans then for that conflict point at Mitre 10?
So the Mitre 10 access, it is busy. It's a two-lane exit. It has a number of vehicles coming out that tow trailers and that kind of thing, but not just over the weekends. The Waka Kotahi has a good guide on how to treat high-volume access ways. And that includes signage, in some cases the use of judder and also the new line marking that's proposed there provides the green cycle blobs. Instead of being solid green, it's green boxes, and that has more of an appearance of a zebra crossing. And the observations of that was that it slows down riders, so it makes them more aware that they're crossing over, but also slows down vehicles turning in. So we'd design that and mark it to the latest guidelines.
What's the width of the traffic lanes in that section?
In the proposal,
Yeah, just outside Mitre 10.
they are 3.4.
I'm just it does concern me because you just got to go to Mitre 10, which I've never seen Aaron at though. Don't know what happens. Oh, you must go at night time because when I go there it's full. No, seriously though, I'm concerned with the amount of vehicles that actually go in and out of that and through that driveway, which is pretty constant for most of the day, and the conflict is going to be with bikes. Now, I understand a more active cyclist probably doesn't want to cross the road and then have to cross back if they're going to be going north. But we're not just building these aren't really being built for those really fit active cyclists. They're being built for people that actually want to get into cycling. They're a bit concerned that actually would rather, I think, not have to deal with that type of conflict and potentially cross the road into a bi-directional on the other side. And I'm just wondering if there's enough room in the design to do something like that and allow those fit, confident people to actually jump onto a simple cycle lane on the road at that point.
Yeah, this is a complicated area, particularly because of the volumes at that access way, and we have reviewed a number of options. And one of the considerations in what you're talking about there is that some of the riders that want to head north may choose to use, and the experienced riders would choose to use Chapel Street rather than continue up to the railway line. And that provides a reasonably direct connection onto Langdons Road, where there will be signals at that crossing at some stage. So it'd be worthwhile going for us to go back and review the options that we considered in that area.
Yeah, I just highlight that's a concern to me. Do you know the traffic movements over through that for that business, for that entrance and exit?
Not off the top of my head, I don't know.
But it is monitored. You've got numbers for that, have you?
We made an estimate of the volume based off a consent application.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it is high. It is high. Yeah. Aaron.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with Mike on that one, that putting it on the south side makes a lot more sense, because at least half the people I would have thought would be turning right when they get to the railway line, or coming up the arc, which is right there, so you'd be crossing over to go to the arc anyway. And then the others, if you are going to Papanui High School or the mall, you'd probably use Chapel, because it is the shorter route, and it's traffic's generally slow when you get to that corner because it's choked. So I mean, it's not if you're a fit cyclist, and if you're a scaredy cat, you'd stick to the well designed, nervous but happy route. But I have to agree with Mike, because that crossing point, I have seen crashes there. They're normally elderly people, hesitant, don't know the new layout, and you get just rear enders, nothing major, but it's a rear ender into a cyclist is not very cool.
Yeah.
Car on car's not so bad, but on when there's people involved. So if it was certainly a vote, I'd know which way I'd be voting. It'd be south side if we could do it. So to see some numbers around that would be good.
So just to be clear, I think what you're saying there is that retain the two-way on the north side of Harewood, cross over at the
Chapel.
signals by Chapel,
Yeah.
and have a south side two-way on the south side from there through the north. Okay.
That would seem to make sense, I reckon.
Anyway, we're doing the briefing at the moment, and we've got hearings to hold, and but it's very useful to feed that into the process. Would you like to comment at all?
Yeah, look, the only thing I'd probably add to that, and it is something we did look at, so we can revisit that and just pull that back out to check again. If we were to pull the major cycle route as a two-way on the south side, we would need to consider how that two-way cycleway would interact with Matson's Avenue and St James Avenue traffic. So Matson's Avenue is a fairly busy road, so putting a two-way cycleway past that, even with a bit less traffic, the other side roads with similar volumes, we've put access restrictions on to mitigate those risks. So we'd certainly be looking at what the issues are of putting contraflow riders past
But
Matson's Avenue or St James.
Matson's is the start of the arc.
Yeah,
So-
but we'd have people maybe crossing down to the Northern Line major cycle route, so heading east on Harewood Road, then they might cross by Matson's Avenue, then ride contraflow on that southern side of the road to the Northern Line Railway. And so just thinking how we'd safely get those contraflow riders past Matson's Avenue and St James Avenue. Not that it can't be done, but this is just a factor to
It'll be
add
good
into
to
it.
look at it and see what the volumes are coming out of those side streets compared to the Mitre 10, etc. Yeah, and it's just a bit hard to see in that diagram how it works at Mitre 10 as well. I assume that's
Where is it? That's not Mitre 10, is it?
Yeah, it's the big.
That's the
Yeah.
Mitre 10 access.
I was looking at the picture above it.
Oh,
Yeah, it's up here. It's
I think it's that big orange line is meant to be
Yeah.
the building, and the white thing's the church.
That's correct.
That's Chapel Street.
Yeah, that's Chapel Street.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Mitre
see.
10 access is down here.
I thought it was Mitre 10.
Yeah, the lights aren't in the image.
Yeah.
You just move that bus stop, the one that's kind of opposite Mitre 10, into the next block where the cycleway wouldn't be.
Yeah.
And that's only moving it by 50 metres. It's not because that's kind of a dangerous, because there's that pedestrian refuge, there's the Mitre 10 entrance and everything. It's a pinch point, which would potentially solve that problem as well.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Well, we've got a very engaged panel. Thank you. That's good.